Welcome back to another episode of the Zeus Podcast. I'm your host, Zeus the Prophet, and not even the force of Mother Nature can stop it, but I can. Today's episode is different, not because of titles, not because of achievements, but because of what it takes to keep showing up when life doesn't give you ideal conditions. Today, we've got someone whose story is built on resilience, discipline, and quiet strength. A 3-time Guinness World Record holder, a motivational speaker, a leader, but more importantly, a woman who has had to navigate life while living with multiple sclerosis. This is episode 17, Strength in the Storm, the Jenny Doan story. And this conversation is about truth behind the strength, the reality behind the struggle, and the mindset that keeps someone moving when everything could tell them to stop. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, happy Easter to everybody. Wishing you and your families a beautiful Easter this Sunday. Heavenly Father, we thank you for life, for breath, and for the strength that you place in each and every one of us, in people, even in the middle of struggle. We ask you, Father, bless this conversation from the beginning to the end. Let it be honest. Let it be grounding. Let it be filled with truth. And let it reach those who need it the most. Bless Jenny, her journey, her health, her family, and her purpose. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. Before we go anywhere, I just want to say this. People see success. People see records. People see the highlights, but they don't always see what it costs to carry all of that, especially when your body doesn't always cooperate. So today, I want to slow this down and really understand the full picture. Jenny, welcome to the Zeus Podcast. How are you?
Well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Jenny, great to have you on the podcast today. So I want to begin right at the very beginning. So take us right back to your origins, before the records, before the recognition, before the diagnosis. Who were you as a child, and what kind of energy did you have growing up?
Yeah, so growing up, I was the middle child. So very, very quiet, didn't talk that much. And there was even a time when my parents left me at the shopping center and didn't realize until 30 minutes later in the car that I wasn't actually there. So being a motivational speaker kind of seems like the extreme opposite, but in a way, it's kind of perfect.
Okay, beautiful. So where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Perth, Western Australia. And my parents were both Vietnamese immigrants from Saigon. And so I had an older sister and a younger brother.
And what was your childhood like? I mean, what did happiness look like for you back then?
To be honest, childhood was actually pretty grim. Um, it was like a lot of depression. So my sister passed away at the age of 15 and I was 12. And she died from, ironically, from causes. So no illness, no accident, yeah, no catastrophe, that your time could just end, and that was just it. So I learned very early on that life doesn't work out according to plan, and then it's not necessarily what you get what you deserve, you just get what you get. And so trying to find a way to make the most of it, learn from it, grow from it, and if you can, help other people so they don't have to learn things the hard way.
Absolutely. So what were your early dreams before life introduced you to challenge?
Yeah, so I have a letter from when I was 14 years old, what I wanted to do when I grew up. So I had my top 3 skills. It was public speaking, mathematics, and listening. I ended up not doing public speaking and doing math as my primary thing, and then coming back, 20 years later to fulfill the prophecy.
So when you look back at it now, what part of your younger version of you is still very much alive?
I think there was always the part of me that thought there's got to be more to this
Yeah,
because it seems so unfair for someone so young to, be taken so early. That if for whatever reason I have longer on this earth, then I should make the most of it. And that when you start to open your eyes a little bit and start to do things a little bit differently, you realize that there's so much out there that you couldn't have seen at the time. But then eventually these opportunities come to life and it's your almost responsibility, I think, to take it because you never know if you're going to
Right.
get that opportunity again. And, a lot of people say, what if you fail? What if it all goes wrong? But then I've already seen things go wrong. So I'm not particularly afraid of that.
Beautiful. Yeah, ever since I met you at a Kaleidoscope event, shout outs to the
Mhm.
Kaleidoscope ladies. Ever since I met you, you've always seemed very fearless, actually. And I really respect that about you a lot. But when you think about your younger self, what do you feel the most pride in?
I think for a long time, I had that hope that something would change because even though I had, years of depression, dropping out of high school, and just having a lot of those situations that make you think that it's not going to be a good time. Some part of me thought that at some point I'm going to get out of this. At some point it's going to make sense. I just don't see it yet. And so even when it seemed futile to go back to study and when all my friends went to university and I was at TAFE, I was at a dead end job, it was just like, this is temporary. And then just
Mm,
trusting that something would unfold if I just kept at it. And then the life that I have now, I couldn't have foreseen because I never would have imagined living in different places and doing all these different things that back in Perth seems like, a pipe dream.
But who shaped your mindset the most in your early years?
I guess it'd be my parents being Vietnamese immigrants. So for a long time, they didn't tell us about their story because they didn't want to upset us. But then when we got to, I guess, mid-20s and we were old enough, they actually sat down and told us about it. And so how much they sacrificed and how many people told them not to go, which kind of surprised me because I thought that it was something that everyone would push you towards, take that opportunity, go for that big thing. But a lot of people were saying like, why? It's too dangerous, it's too risky, like don't do it. And the fact that they did it, not knowing the language, not having anything other than the clothes on their back, and they did it anyway. And I guess it's funny because then later those same people are like, "So when are you visiting?" But at the time they were extremely against it. And so they had their rebellion from the beginning. And so then when they had their rebellion, then it's a matter of me kind of having that permission to do the same because they were able
Mm,
to exponentially improve their lives, like having opportunities that literally don't exist back where, is their home. And so I can do the
absolutely.
same thing like repeatedly. And I have so many advantages because of the sacrifice that they made.
Absolutely. And were there any early challenges that prepared you in ways you didn't understand at the time?
Yeah, so I think the depression aspect was pretty haunting because when you're a child, you don't fully understand what's going on around you and you're just trying to fill in the gaps as best you can. And so my understanding was that my parents never cried in front of me. They never said that they were sad. And so I felt like I was the only one. But as an adult, I realized that losing your child would be the most devastating experience a parent could have. And that just because they didn't
Absolutely.
say it didn't mean they didn't feel it. And so I think for me, my process, I guess, leaving home and making my own communities elsewhere was that if you want somebody to open up, sometimes you have to do it first. And then
Mm,
all of a sudden, everybody is on the same page. And I felt that repeatedly with like talking about my multiple sclerosis and then people that I worked with coming out and saying that they have different disabilities or invisible conditions and they've just lived with it the whole time and I never knew about it.
wow. Well, did you ever feel underestimated or misunderstood?
I may have, but I probably didn't care at the time to do anything about it. And so I think there was that mentality where I guess I was raised not to care about what other people said about you because they don't really have that much bearing over your life. And so they can say and think as much as they want, but they're wasting their time more than yours. So it never really phased me.
So, what did you learn about yourself before MS entered your life?
I guess for a long time, I guess it might have been hubris, but I kind of thought I was invincible. I kind of just like laugh in the face of things that what could possibly stop me? And so I would just continually do bigger and bigger and crazier things. And so I guess there's comes to a point where sometimes you're doing things just to find out. And sometimes that's fun. But then at a certain point, you kind of have to wonder, like, why are you doing this thing? And so I think it did
Mm,
probably get me to rein things in a little bit and be a little bit more discerning about what I want rather than just doing things because I can. And so having a lot more intention behind it and more of an appreciation that things might not last forever. And so I think coming back to what do you want to leave as your legacy or impact you want to have on others definitely came to the forefront.
Beautiful. Now, I want to move into something that changes everything: multiple
Mhm,
sclerosis.
mhm.
Take me into that moment, please, sis. What were the first signs your body gave you that wasn't, that something wasn't right?
So I was getting numbness in my feet, and initially I thought that was related to back pain, like a pinched nerve or something. And so I was seeing an osteo, I was seeing a physio, and just nothing was really working. And so I ended up getting some back injections, which made the back pain go away, but then the numbness was still there. And then, when you go to the doctor, you get another blood test, and they're like, you're good as
Yeah,
gold. Like, everything
absolutely.
is fine. You're fine. And I was training for my fourth Guinness World Record for the most chin ups for hula hooping. And that seemed normal. I was doing like 50 chin ups a day in my doorway, just cranking them out. And then one day at the gym, while I was doing a dead hang, my hands just sprung open. And then that freaked me out. And when I went to the doctor, she said, you have to go to the emergency department because that meant that there was something happening with my spine where my grip strength was normal here, but not here. And that was
Did
basically a
you
big deal.
did you trust those signals or brush them off at first?
I kind of thought the numbness might have been there's so many different reasons you can have numbness. It's like process of elimination more than anything. And so I thought there would be other things. MS was on the list, but I had no family history. So it was kind of like a long shot. But then when I got into the hospital and everyone gets super serious. And it was like, okay, now there's two neurologists in the room. And you're like, oh, okay, that's pretty important. And then I think things got more serious within the process of, I guess, 10 hours. I ended up getting checked into the stroke and brain injury ward. And then that's when things started getting very, very real.
And when you finally heard the diagnosis, well, what did that do for you emotionally?
Uh, I think initially it was the shock of it. And then I'd already researched what MS was and that it was incurable. And it was just like yet another thing that I have to deal with. And there are parts of it where you can kind of tell yourself that you'll be okay, but then you also don't know. And so there's just this big question mark that's always there. Sometimes it bothers you more than others, but that's just going to be something that you just have to live with.
Well, did it feel real straight away or did it take time to process?
I guess it's hard to say actually, because there are instances where I think day to day you kind of forget that you have MS. And so then I don't think there is any like consistent feeling. I think on certain days it's more noticeable, and then on other days it's just like every other day, really.
Well, I told you about a little bit about my story, how I was misdiagnosed with MS. I was like halfway down the middle, I was numb on my left side. And for a while, I didn't know what was wrong with me. I was going to work and I was just, everything was like numb. And I went to the doctors and, I was like limping into the doctors at the time. And she saw me and she goes, do you want to go to the hospital now? I said, yeah, I might have to. Yeah, so I took myself to the hospital and I ended up spending 4 days in St. Vincent's Hospital.
Jeez.
And yeah, they had the same thing when neurologists come in and check me out. And I was still numb at this point, like
Mhm,
halfway down the middle of my body,
mhm, mhm,
completely half. Like the other half was fine.
mhm,
The left part was completely numb. And they ended up, telling me I would never be able to walk again. I said, yeah,
mhm,
you want to bet? I was very resilient and very strong minded, very stubborn at that point because
mhm,
I couldn't believe it,
mhm,
so they ended up going back and forward. A couple of days later, I got released from hospital from St. Vince, and I was doing more research and whatnot. And then they ended up coming back to me saying, "No, sorry, we made a mistake. It was a precursor to MS. It was not fully,
Did they give
MS."
you the MRI or were they just, "Wow, they'll do"?
No, they didn't. No, there was no MRI done.
I was gonna say, that's a bit sus. I wanna see your credentials.
So not trying to shit on anybody at the St. Vincent's Hospital. The St. Vincent's is a wonderful hospital. I'm sure there's so many great doctors and neurologists and nurses there that are doing amazing work every day. So shout outs to the St. Vincent's Hospital. During my time, for some reason, I fell through the cracks.
Mm.
So what was the first thought that hit you, and who was the first person you spoke to about it?
So it was my friend Christine. So I was working remotely, still with my Perth job, but living in Melbourne. And we had a weekly lunch meeting where we would just talk because she was the only colleague that I spoke to regularly. And so then that call just came up and I was like, shit. And it was just, yeah, so I was tired because I have this incurable disease. And It was probably a good thing that I spoke to her because I would have avoided talking to anybody else about it for as long as humanly possible. I feel like I would have just kept it to myself forever if I could have, frankly. I messaged my brother and I messaged him and I said, "Do I have to tell mum? Because I don't want to, I don't want to upset her." And he was like, "You know the answer to that. Like, obviously you have to tell her." And so I had to practice with a few different people because I didn't want to be devastated over the phone while talking to her. And so I called, my gym and I said, "Can you put my membership on hold?" Like my voice breaking. "I have multiple sclerosis." They're like, "Yep, that's fine. Is there anything else you need?" And that was just practice, like one person at a time until I could say it without my voice breaking. And
Absolutely.
I felt bad for her because 18 months prior, we had lost dad to cancer. And so when you're around people that you love that are sick, sometimes that can feel overwhelming because you can't do anything for them. And coupled with that, but being on the other side of the country, it was just a lot. And I didn't want her to feel bad. And
Yeah.
so I think there was a big part of it there where it was like trying to reassure her that it wasn't the end of the world and then trying to reassure myself at the same time. And so then I guess the mystery with MS is that it could be devastating or it might be totally fine. Like there's absolutely no way of you knowing which way it's going to go. And so you kind of look on the upside and say, so it's autoimmune, so you can't, delete it. It's your own immune system doing this. But then you can say they have extraordinary treatments now that people would have dreamed of 20 years ago. So you're doing everything you possibly can. You're not drinking, you're not smoking, you're eating healthy, you're doing all the right things. And so you're in the best possible position you can be. But that doesn't guarantee anything, unfortunately.
For those watching who might not fully understand it, sis, what is multiple sclerosis?
You have this immune system, I guess an analogy. It's like in a bar, you have security, a bouncer that keeps, the rough houses out. And theoretically, they go in every day, they do their job, keep the bad guys out, and everyone's happy. But then all of a sudden, just a few security guards start to go rogue. And you don't know why, but they start going behind the bar, they start smashing, bottles. And then the wait staff are like, "What are you doing? Why are you smashing all these bottles?" And then they start fighting. And then there's all this just inflammation that's just happening. And that's what's happening in your body, specifically in your brain and your spinal cord. And it creates these scars or lesions that basically can affect any function that touches your brain, spinal cord, or even your optic nerve. So that's
Mm,
every human function. And you can't kick out all of the bouncers because then now anyone can just walk in. So they have these
right.
treatments called DMTs, disease modifying drugs, and they identify the troublemakers. I don't know how they do that. That's way beyond my pay grade. They find those troublemakers and they get rid of them. And so the
Mm,
downside is that now you have fewer security guards. So if somebody does cause trouble, it might take longer. So for instance, being immunocompromised, that means if the flu is going around, I might normally fight it off, but it might suddenly make me sick. It might make me sick for way longer. And so you have all these different, I guess, issues with the treatment itself, but then in the long run, it's designed to prevent further damage.
what a great analogy. I've never heard it being put that way. So how would you describe fatigue in a way people can really understand?
So I think when you say you have fatigue, a lot of people are like, "I'm tired too." But then it's kind of different because if you were just regular tired, you could go sleep and then the next day you would feel better. So I describe it as if you have done something intense, like intense exercise, like a world record, and then you also get food poisoning and you get the flu. And so then you're just like flat out. And then you sleep and you still wake up and you still have food poisoning. So that kind of fatigue that can happen. And it could be you wake up like that, or it could be randomly halfway through the day, it might just suddenly come up. And then
Yeah.
you have to really quickly adjust. Like if you're out and about, you're like, "Okay, I have to get home," or cancel plans or do things differently. And so there's a part of it where sometimes you can see it coming. So with summertime, heat sensitivity is very common for people with MS, where your symptoms can be heightened. And so in those cases, in the summertime, you'll just plan things differently. Like do your errands at sundown, not in the middle of the day, and just drink more water, have cooling fans and all that kind of stuff. But then when it hits for no reason, there's a lot of like self talk that has to be retrained because the old Jenny was like, yes, I broke the Guinness World Record for hula hooping 100 hours. So yes, you want to go to sleep. Yes, you want to lie down. But no, we keep going. But now you have
Yeah,
MS and you're like,
absolutely.
that's the worst thing you can possibly do for yourself. And so you have to reprogram that.
There's also an eternal battle. There's a physical side, and then there's a
Mhm.
mental side too.
Mm.
Have there been
Yep.
any moments where mentally it's harder for you, like, than physically?
The mental part comes later because I feel like you're just putting out the fires first. You're just like doing all that stuff. You're going to the hospital, you're reading the paperwork. And then when things get quiet, so you're just like minding your own business. And so it'll be things like just spontaneously crying when I guess you're just holding the fort down for so long. And then when you're left to, relax by yourself, that's where it comes out. When it's just like, I guess you have to sit with that feeling that this isn't food poisoning that's going to go away. Like it might get better, it might not. And so then the reality of what you think you had control over you realize was just a giant illusion. And so you're just putting all these new things together, and the people around you who are used to seeing you positive are like, you're so upbeat and you're so smiley. And you're like, but I'm not. Some people handle that better than others. And at times you have to step back in those situations.
What does your inner voice sound like on those days?
I think nowadays there's probably more perspective where it's like, if you can't do this one thing, if you zoom out a day or a week or a year, is it actually a big deal? And so all the little things that you think, like not washing the dishes before you go to bed, like not a big deal. But when you have that as like a standard for what you think of yourself, like I'm a conscientious person, I do this, I do this, I do this. It's like it's not true. So you have to kind of take a lot of those things back and I guess be more realistic about what you are doing and how much things truly matter to you. And so I think there's a bit of
Right.
kindness there. And then there's a lot of, yeah, I guess just like rationalizing things in a way that is kinder to yourself, that a lot of the things you are doing are hard. You just don't have a certificate for it and people can't see it, but it's still hard. It doesn't change that. And so giving myself the benefit of the doubt when I am struggling that it makes sense, that it's okay. I don't need to have like a 3-page justification for why I feel what I feel.
Do you fight it, or do you learn to work with it?
I think half the time it's just you making something bigger than it needs to be. Like things are really that much, that serious, like life or death. But then we could just easily build things up in our head to be way more, I guess, heavy than they need to be.
Have you ever had to grieve the version of yourself before MS?
Oh, constantly. It's like an
What does
everyday
that look
thing
like
where
to you?
it's so I think the big one was canceling the marathon that I signed up for. And so I did some running in like winter last year, and then I'd signed up for a marathon, paid $50 extra to be able to get a refund, no questions asked, just in case. And then when the summer
Mhm.
came, it was just this horrific feeling of just your whole body just melting, I suppose. And so there was a period
Wow.
where I just wasn't going outside. I canceled my gym membership. I dog sat for my friend, and the only exercise I did was taking the dogs out so they didn't shit in the house. And so you go from being someone who is, in your mind, an athlete to being essentially like a potato. And then even if you
Mm.
did work out, you're not enjoying it because of you feel shit the entire time. And so there was just this sense of like wanting this beautiful character arc where it's like woman gets MS and then makes a comeback and then does marathons with MS and yeah, shoot. And it's just not that. And
Yeah.
it's like, and I sat on that cancellation for ages, even though I would have gotten $200 back and I could have, spent that on something fun. I just didn't cancel it for the longest time. And then I saw my therapist and she was saying, give yourself grace, give yourself grace. And I'm like, fuck
Right.
grace. It's been a year. Like, how much grace does one person need? Is grace going to
How
pay my
much? Yeah.
bills? Like, what the
Right.
shit am I supposed to do with this? And there was such this like anger where it's like, what do you know? Like, and so I was like, you know
Exactly.
what? When I get home, I'm going to cancel this thing, this stupid marathon, because it's making me sad. And so then I canceled it. And then in hindsight, what I realized, oh, I wish I had a piece of string. That what I was cutting wasn't my old life or the old me, it was just this piece of string between me and this really, really specific outcome and getting really, really mad that it wasn't what I wanted. But then when you snip that, then this ball of wool, you can pull a different piece of string and you can pull it in any freaking direction. And it doesn't matter. It could be the
Right.
old one, it could be a new one, it could be behind you, it could be anything.
Mm.
And literally, I think it was 2 weeks after that, a company called Shit Happens reached out to me. And they're a toilet paper company that supports the disability community.
Right.
And the
I've seen you
timing of those
posting a
2
lot about
things
that, and I fully support what you're doing there. God bless you. That's wonderful.
and when I really, really think about it, being so fixated on wanting the old Jenny, the marathon person, giving that up literally freed me up to do something totally different that would have a totally different impact and suit me way better. Because shit happens being the diagnosis, my dad getting cancer, so many of these events where it's just the worst of the worst, but then it becoming something totally different that you couldn't have planned yourself. And so there was this like acceptance that you have to walk away from the thing sometimes. And it can push you and it can like throw you against the wall, but you can still hold on to it and not know. But you have to
Mm.
like consciously let go of that thing. And with it, all with it, the rage, the anger, and all that. And then your hand is free and it can just grab something else. And I just
I
didn't
think
see that
that's
at the time. It just felt like loss. Like, what am I losing? What can't I do? And I just didn't see everything else.
Yeah, I think that's very important for a lot of people to realize. And what has that journey so far revealed about your true strength? I think this is what most people want to know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But yes, my body did the world records, but it was my mind. Because I decided that I was going to break the record for 100 hours. And I'd done
Mm.
the planning and my body knew what to do. I had trained it so well, but it was my mind that kept it going when everything else was just falling apart. And
Mm.
so it was because, I don't know, maybe it's not the mind, maybe it's just an internal desire beyond that, where it was just this, I don't know, this push, this pull that I couldn't describe. And that thing will change shape constantly because it wasn't always hula hooping. Before that, it was cycling. Before that, it was video games. Before that, jigsaw puzzles. Like it's all these different
Right.
things that just pull you. And when you're in it, you don't know the words for it. You don't need to explain it. It just is. And then when that sprouts
Mm.
somewhere else in the right environment with the right people and that energy, and you feed that energy, it just creates a completely different outcome.
Wow, that's so profound. And let's talk about the part that people don't always see, family. How has MS affected your role within your family?
Yeah, I think it made me a lot more honest because there was certainly a point where my mum really, really was worried about me and wanted to just like come move in with me and I'll take care of everything.
Right.
And
As moms
it's
usually
like you're
do.
forever a child to your parents, like that never goes away. So I'm glad that there's no like, you're too old, get out of here, lady. It's like, come back, come back. Eat food, let me feed you and cut fruit for you. There was kind of that energy and it was just reminding my mom that I'm actually okay. Like you can visit me, I'll visit you. And yeah, every ounce of strength that I got was from her, knowing that
Mm.
I came from their insane, journey and everything that they've done. It it just puts everything into perspective because I think of everything that they did. Like my mum was in a refugee camp for 18 months. Like to be in that position to not know what your future lies if you're going to get, sent back or if you're going to go to a country that's, worse than where you were before and
Exactly.
still going ahead with it. So there's this certain like strength that came from them and some of it has to sprinkle
Mm.
on you.
Mm.
And so just reminding
Absolutely.
her that I'm gonna be okay was probably the big heart to heart that we needed to have.
Wow. And what has this journey taught your family about resilience?
I don't know actually. They're probably like, "Jenny's just doing weird shit again. She's back. She's fine. She's healing."
What a great answer. Well, what moment with your family hit you the hardest emotionally?
With the MS or with everything?
Yeah, no, with the MS, of course.
Let me think. I think because 'cause we've gone through dad having cancer and seeing the worst of it, because you go from seeing somebody in hospital and then you go to essentially hospice care when you know that they're not gonna make it. So we've been to the depths of like, there's no hope. Like it's literally over. We're just waiting for when. And so we've all sat through that. And I think that has kind of increased our capacity to deal with anything that's less terrible. And so in a way,
It would have been so hard.
it seemed, yeah, like oddly hopeful then that there is treatment and that it isn't going to be something that's as dire as what my dad experienced, but that we were equipped to deal with that should that arise. And so I think there's definitely a sense of like gratitude that like I'm in Australia because before I
Mm.
was living in the US and that would have added another layer of
Oh,
complication.
okay.
Yeah, having the best healthcare you can possibly get and having like the how quick everything moved once I got diagnosed, knowing that everything that could be done was being done. So that, yeah, on aggregate, it's not great news, but it's the best way that this bad news could have come.
So you said you lived in the US? Whereabouts did you live
Yeah,
in
so
the
all the
US?
records are from the US. So Chicago was the first
Okay.
one, and then Denver, I guess during the pandemic when everything also went to shit, is when I switched over to Denver for a different job. So yeah, it was a it was
Okay.
a good time at that point, but then it was also difficult with COVID and how different it was for I guess the whole world.
Absolutely. Very heartbreaking for our family too, you know. I had to explain to my daughter was she's 11 now, but she was 6 at the time. And I had to
Mm,
explain to her, you know, like she bawled her eyes out. We took her to the park and there was idiot tape all
mhm,
over the park, and I had to explain to her, you know, like why she couldn't play in the park, and that can't be deep, you know. Like such a crazy time for a father to explain to his baby girl, you know, like why she
mhm,
couldn't play in the park, or what the actual science was behind it, what the reasoning was. There was
mhm,
nothing, no reasoning, no science, no nothing. It broke my heart,
mm,
you know. So it was a very very crazy time for a lot of us
mhm,
too. But at some point, something shifts. You go from
mhm,
reacting to deciding.
mhm,
When
mhm.
did that shift happen for you, Jenny?
With COVID or with the MS? Got many of those.
With everything pretty much, you
Yeah.
know? Like, when was
So
that
COVID was
moment
an
for you?
interesting one because I was on a visa that was employer sponsored. So if I lost my job, I had 60 days to find a job or basically get kicked out of the country. And there were mass layoffs. So I was working for Uber. And so working for Uber during COVID is not great. Mass layoffs, like 30% in some teams. And so that was just a very like frank conversation. Like, do we stay in America or do we move back? And I didn't know how long it was gonna last, and I was looking for jobs just in case, but it was very difficult to find work because you're competing with people that are ex-Google, you know,
Right,
Amazon, people that are very, very experienced,
right.
and then everything was
Mm,
remote. So you're competing with people in SF, you're
mm.
competing with people in New York, and so it was
San
pretty
Francisco,
rough.
yeah, sure.
Yeah. And so then I ended up just training myself with what I enjoyed. So I was a data analyst. So I learnt some new programming languages and then learnt how to automate my entire job, which was awesome. And then with that skill, I was able to get a job at a different startup and nearly double my pay. And so I was like I think when you get churn, I guess things moving up or down. For some companies, it's terrible and it's messed up. But for some companies, it's a huge upside and so finding those people, it ended up me looking at this job posting and there was a tick box that said employer sponsored and I ticked it. And there was only one answer, that company. And so
Wow.
then it was really, really easy. Instead of applying for 20 jobs, apply for one. And then things moved very, very quickly and nicely in that direction. So it was just like coincidence slash I was also training myself. So I was trying to do something different to everybody else. And I think that served me very well.
Okay, wow. You've had a pretty profound journey so far. Let's talk Guinness World Records. Now,
Yeah.
this is where your story becomes something extraordinary. Three-time Guinness World Record holder.
Mhm.
Most people would slow down. You accelerated. What drove that?
Because once you have one world record, you know what you're capable of. You're like, what else is there? Like the curiosity gets to you and you're like, what? I have to
Absolutely.
look. Yeah. And I think it's just because like I was really good at hula hooping. That's like a coincidence. But then I did long distance cycling before then. So I had a very high endurance and pain threshold. And so when you start putting together things that don't necessarily go together or are super unique, you have this incredible niche that nobody else can take. And so that's when I looked at other records, the most stairs climbed for hula hooping. And so there's a whole community, they call it vertical running and it's people who go around the world and run up and down skyscrapers. Like,
You're
no,
amazing.
no, but I spoke to those people. I like got on a Zoom call with this guy. I was like, okay, tell me about what do you do with stairs? And then people just like tell you about it. And it's like, there's another community you haven't even heard of. And then I'm like, okay, hula hooping plus stairs. Because who's good at both of those two things? I'll figure that out.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
then, yeah, and then it just becomes like an optimization thing. So then you're looking for the perfect staircase. So you want staircases that are wide enough so you can hula hoop. You want them to not be too steep, because then that's like basically high incline. So you're looking at just stairs everywhere you go, like counting them, trying to find like the optimal stairs.
The optimal
Like
stairs, right.
there are so many like iconic ones, like Philadelphia, the Rocky ones, where it's like the eye of the
Mm-hmm.
tiger and he's like cheering at the top.
Yeah, yeah,
But
right,
then the
right.
landing is too long in between, so you have to like waste so much energy. And so it's just this like weird eye that you have for these things. And then when you find things and they all align, it's just the reps then. And then after that, I guess it's simple, but not necessarily easy.
Wow. So take me into one of those moments, sis. Were you pushing your body while knowing your limits were real? Did fear ever step in?
I guess at that time, I didn't think that I had limits. And so it was just like you were just so used to just getting a little bit more out of it, a little bit more out of it. Because you know that physiologically, if you were being chased by a bear, that you would be able to keep running. It's just that your body would give you whatever it is you need, adrenaline, to do it. And so when you feel tired and you feel like stopping in that context, you can override it. And so there are times day to day where I kind of struggle with that because I think, what if I can just like mindset my way around this? And then it's like, no, Jenny, you have like lesions in your spine and stuff, and like, is it gonna make you happy, or like, is the thing worth it for you to like do this?
Right.
And so I think that was probably more the conversation where when I was doing these records, like the feeling of getting them, of being on top of the world that nobody else in the world can beat, is just it's just so exhilarating. And you
Wow.
only have to do it once because who's gonna go after this record after I smashed it so ridiculously hard?
I
Like, it would have to
know,
be me
I
having
know.
children and then training them from, like, the age of 4 to be able to do this. And so then it's
And
just
3 times too?
yeah, yeah,
No?
yeah. But not be like a crazy Asian parent. Just be like, if you want a hula hoop, you can, but, like, you can do other things.
Beautiful. And for those who don't know, for those watching who don't know, can you tell us each one what they were, like what the
Oh,
actual
yeah, yeah,
title
yeah.
was?
So that one's hula hooping for 100 hours. The old record was 75 hours. And then the most stairs climber hula hooping, that was 775. And then I took it to 10,241. And then this one, the most hula hoop spun while suspended upside down. And nobody had ever done that. And I set the record
Wow.
at 23. Yeah.
20,
Oh, no, 23 hoops at once. But, I don't know, it's a lot of hula hoops.
23 hoops, that's a lot of hoops, you know? Wow, God bless you. That's something that
Yeah.
most people can't even fathom, you know? That's wow. Now, when you achieved those records, what did that moment feel like, knowing everything behind it?
Yeah, I think it's when all the training pays off and you don't actually think about it. So while you're training for it, it's, an hour here, an hour there, or potentially 30. And you do it so, so, so many times that you just know how to do it. And then when you're on the day, you try and replicate as much as you can as the training. So clothing, music, food, you don't want to introduce anything new at the end because that'll totally mess you up. And then when you're doing the record, the only thing you're looking for is what's going wrong. And then you fix that. So for the second one, the stairs one, it was super, super hot. We had to start an hour late because we were setting up the cameras. And so I was just sweating profusely. But if you drink water, it has to go somewhere. And hula hooping, it's directly pushing on your bladder. And so you're overheating, but you can't drink water or you're going to pee yourself. And so then it was
True.
just asking for ice cubes and then just putting ice cubes on me and then squeezing them, just anything that can cool you down without making you drink more water. And so you're just
Mm.
trying to get everything you can for that last half hour where you're just like swaying in the wind. But then you know that it's like, okay, it's not that bad. We're so close. And then we don't have to do this again. Then we're done. No one's going to touch this record for at least 10 years. And so just chill,
Right.
like it's fine.
Absolutely. Wow. And has anyone what year were those records attained?
So 2019 and then 2022 for the others. And people have messaged me
Wow.
and they've said so. And I'm like, okay. At first I got scared and I was like, oh, I need to start training. And then I never
Right.
hear from them again.
God
So
bless you.
I think, yeah, I think the reality of the situation might set in when they start the record and they realize you're gonna really, really want this. You're gonna really
It's
want it.
easier said than done, of course, you
Hmm.
know. And
Hmm.
like you said, you would have prepared for it mentally and physically
Hmm.
too, first of all,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah.
So do those wins carry a deeper meaning because of what you've overcome?
I think it made everything make sense because when I used to go cycle touring, I would pick a country or series of countries and just ride my bike until I got to the other side. And when you're
Yes.
cycling and there's no one around, there's no music, podcasts weren't really a thing back then. It's just
Hmm.
you processing all the things. And you don't even realize that you're doing it. And it's just hours and hours just like watching the world go by. And I guess when you have a childhood that's not particularly happy, you didn't have that much time just for enjoyment. You're kind of just like trying to
Mm,
survive, or you're trying to, I don't know, perform in some way to satisfy other people. And so to have that time back purely for yourself, not measured by anything, you're not trying to get certain grades or a certain pay or anything like that. It's so life fulfilling. And having somebody point out to me that my superpower was to keep going just really made me aware that the thing that you don't realize is a gift is extraordinary because one, it's natural to you. You don't even try to do it, you just naturally do it. But you
mm,
underestimate it because you assume everybody has that. But then once you realize that's
exactly.
not the case, you learn how to feed it and explain it, and then you can show other people. And there's such a funny thing about that because I think for a while I probably would have hidden it because it's like when you're different, there's a tendency to think that if I tell people, they'll think I'm strange or weird or they'll make fun of me. And so for a
Uh,
long time, I didn't tell people that I wanted to break the record for hula hooping 100 hours because I thought people would mock me.
well, it's not something that you can easily start a conversation with. Hi, I'm
Yeah,
Jenny.
yeah.
I wanna, but I see you. I feel you on that one.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because this discipline is extremely difficult. You know,
Hmm.
a discipline is easy when everything feels good. It's different when it doesn't. How did
Hmm.
you stay consistent when your energy wasn't guaranteed?
I guess for the records, I feel like when you're on a mission that requires so much of you, it forces everything else to fall in line. And so I was fortunate that I was single, didn't have kids. It was just my job. And so then it was my job, and then everything else just had to fit around hula hooping. So taking time off work on a few days, I didn't procrastinate. I didn't, doom scroll because, like, no, I don't have time for that shit. And so it does really, really
Exactly.
make you more focused because if you slack off, then you won't get the thing that you want. And so everything has a really, really high opportunity cost. And so you have to really be deliberate about what you're doing. And so I think the hardest times came from when I'm not focused on something, like when you're in a job that you hate or, you don't have that spark in your life. Then everything feels like the stakes are so low that who cares if you win or
Exactly.
lose? So I think those times are the hardest when you don't have that thing that excites you.
Do you have routines or systems that help you manage your condition?
I think at the moment it's probably, I guess, having my day with more space in it. And so rushing less, giving myself more opportunities where instead of doing things the hard way, like, no, Jenny, you can order things online. Like, getting your groceries delivered isn't bougie. Like, if it's gonna help you eat and feed yourself, then do it. Like, what are you doing? And so stuff like that, where it was like the shame element, I kind of got rid of that. The other one was just saying no to a lot more things, where
Mm,
sometimes you would just go because you feel obliged, but then sometimes it's a matter of like, what do you have energy for, and what is that taking away from other things? And so there are a lot of activities that I would like to go to, but then at the end of the day, I won't be able to do other things. So to be more
right.
considerate of what your needs are and then being okay with asking other people, where it's things like, can you give me a lift? Can we meet at my place instead of me going there? Stuff like that to allow yourself to take the easier path.
Yeah, to meet people, get them to meet you halfway.
Yeah.
But what have you had to sacrifice to keep moving forward in this journey?
A lot of stability because the easiest thing would have been to go back to the 9 to 5 job, get the steady paycheck, and grind myself into the ground. And I think
Well,
going into business, you take the risk that perhaps things don't work out or they're not as stable as they were before. And so there's a lot of trust in that. because I feel like if I don't try and find out and see where things could have gone, the regret from that would sting more than any failure or embarrassment ever could. So there is a lot of believing that things will work out, and sometimes it hurts when you're like, no, I used to be making this much money, now I'm not. I think that stings a little bit, but then
Mm.
having that belief that it's coming because you're doing the work and you're putting yourself out there, and
Yeah,
it's
for
not
sure.
a guarantee in terms of next week or on this date, but just staying persistent. It's hard at times, but doing the best with it.
Yeah, very. Yeah, it gets me angry almost sometimes. I wanted to ask you something straight. So does it ever get you angry? That are you angry at it?
Yeah, because I remember the drive home from the therapist before I canceled that gym membership. It was the first time I said out loud, like, "I hate you, MS." Because it's like you as a person, like, as a thing. Because it was like, it's not that I can't do something, it's that the thing that I enjoyed the most, like, in physical endurance, like, I've been doing it for 10 years. I quit my job on multiple occasions to go ride a bicycle. Like something that I care about more than money, more than time, more than anything else that I would do for months at a time. And even when it hurts, like I got sunburned through my shirt while I was cycling across Canada. And you're like, how does that even happen? But it's like, no, I'm gonna get back on the bike, put sun cream on, then put your shirt on. And like I loved that like so much. Like how much I gave up to do that stuff that I would do 1,000 times over. But then you come to the realization that your gift that you had at that time, like one, well done for doing it and not putting it off. Because if I just said, go to your job and then when you're 50, you can go do that, like it's not going to happen. Two, that the gift you were given never had the guarantee that it would be permanent. It wasn't yours to have, it was yours to enjoy. Who knows for how long? And it was my friend that gave me that gift. Yeah, he gave me that gift. He introduced me to cycling and I got 4 amazing years out of it. I got to see 20 something countries. Yeah, and so it's like and then that gave me so much more, the hula hooping and all these other things. And then when I really, really look at things like the MS and all that, like I get to run a toilet paper company. Like
Mm.
that was never going to happen. And it's just this thing that can reach so many other people. And if I were just hula hooping by myself, I could help some people, sure. But it's just the magnitude of things can change. And so at the moment, I'm so new to the toilet paper world, I don't feel the same intensity. But then that will grow in the same way that I transitioned from cycling to hula hooping. It's just you leave one behind and you get sad, and then this new thing is the thing. And that
Yeah,
in life, we're just
absolutely.
constantly going through that. And people have that with their jobs, with relationships. I mean, especially women, it's like, having children if you choose, having menopause, like going through all these like big like leaps and changes in your life. And there's a certain beauty in your world getting blown up so hard because it shatters in such a way that you can't put it back to what it was. So it forces you to do something wildly different. And chances are that thing that's wildly different is what you always wanted to do anyway, but it was too risky compared to the sure thing. And so in a way, getting diagnosed with MS in such like an abrupt and rude way was the wake up call that I couldn't ignore. And so like now I'm like, okay, thank you, MS. Like, I'm sorry I said I hate you. But it's just so weird to like go around. Like it still baffles me at the moment.
Have you made
And
have you made peace with it yet?
um I think of a lot of things in that way. Like when I think of like ex-boyfriends that didn't work out, but then you went to therapy and you learned you learned from that relationship. It's like yeah, a lot of people get married to their high school sweetheart. I don't know how many of them are still married, but like that's one path.
Mm.
And you can kind of feel like, oh, I don't have that. Like mine is less than or whatever. But then you go on this beautiful, I guess it's the scenic route rather than the direct path. And so this year, I'm hoping that my high school will let me get an honorary high school diploma so that I can walk across stage as a 36-year-old and get my high school diploma. Like, there are all these little things where it's like, why not? Like, I've gone full circle, get the records, become a CEO, and then go get my high school diploma. Like, who says it has to be at the age of 17?
Exactly. You make the rules to your life, you know? You
Yeah,
achieve
pretty
what you
much.
wanna achieve.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you, what do you believe your story is here to show people?
Oh, there's a million ways to do things. A million ways. And when there's that really yucky, like, kind of feeling, motivational speakers will tell you to keep pushing, keep pushing. Sometimes it's like, oh, maybe not. Maybe you're meant to do something entirely different. And sometimes we get so fixed on that thing because, like, I promised I was going to do that. I was talking about it. I put this much time, this much money. It has to work out. And then sometimes maybe that's not for you. And I think that kind of ties into like surrender, where it's seen as a bad thing, like waving the white flag, but then it's just like surrendering one outcome, and then it opens the door to infinite number of other ones. And so it's a fine line to know when you stop and when you keep going. And I think when I think of all the different journeys and paths in my life, it was always this like internal feeling that like, yes, I might have wanted this 3 years ago, but this is no longer the thing that, I don't know, wakes me up or makes me feel alive. And so then it is time to leave. And I think a lot of us can kind of get stuck in the same thing because it's safe, because it's known, and not try something else. But I think the tragedy in that is there are tons of people who don't ever get the chance to try new things, like when their time is up. And so when you're given the extra time, however long that may be, you not using that is just such a shame. And yeah, having lost people, having been diagnosed with an illness myself, like, I'm not going to get it right all the time, but I just want to make sure that I'm not just filling my life with regrets. But at the end, I'm not just wishing I could have done this, I could have done that. I want to try
Right.
it, get a story, meet people, like all these things that are so much more than what you could have like imagined.
That's why I felt it was so necessary to invite you on the Zeus podcast. And was that your story definitely needs to be shared with the world, and because your aura, your vibe, it's so profound that people can't help gravitate towards you, you know? But I want to ask you, what would you say to somebody who has just been diagnosed with MS and feels lost?
Don't try and do it alone. There is such an instinct to recoil and like get real small, but there are so many people around you that can help. And I think when you're part of a community that is so small relative to other people, people are so generous with their time. Like so many times in when I was sharing on social media, people just be like in the comments, like, here's my phone number. Like if you need anything, like chat to us, because every single person who has MS has gone through that diagnosis period, and it can be up to 2 years. Some say like they saying 2 years is the newly diagnosed, and for a lot of people it
Mm,
takes way longer to come to terms with it. So we all have this thing in common of like the absolute despair, sadness, just all of these
mm.
different things all in this little pile that we can't untangle. And then at some point, the weight of that starts to fade. And so seeing other people, talking to people who will support you, getting a therapist if you can afford it, getting into the non-for-profits that have people to guide you through it, like use those resources because people are doing that stuff because they know how hard it is and that you are not alone in this.
What's the biggest misconceptions about MS that most people don't think about?
It's probably because for a lot of us, it's invisible. So you don't look sick. And it's because you can't see my spinal cord and my brain because they're inside me. So, like, sorry. And
No,
so,
absolutely. Speak on that,
and
sis.
then, yeah, then you realize that the majority of disabilities are actually invisible. And so what you think is just, the wheelchair bay for people in wheelchairs, it's like, no, that's a fraction of the population. There's way more happening underneath the surface. So many people that have conditions that they might not, share with everybody, that a little bit of kindness goes a long way. And so I think when people are sharing their experience rather than, giving them solutions, which they most probably have thought about or been recommended 1,000 times, like approach it with curiosity and realize that it's kind of grim, but like anybody can become disabled, whether that's age, accident, illness, that there's no, we might think we're in control of every aspect of our lives. We're not. To have that with
Spoiler alert.
yeah, yeah, sorry. But then in the meantime, we just have to like be kind to each other and then
Absolutely.
hope that when something happens to us that all the love and, patience we put out there will come back to us, tenfold.
So profound. All right, let's shift this for a second, sis. On a perfect day, no pressure, no expectations. What are you
Yeah.
doing?
Go to IMAX. They used to have IMAX in Perth
Yeah,
back in the day, and then I don't know what happened to it. So when I was a kid, every time I came to Melbourne or Sydney, I said, now I can go
yay.
whenever I want. So yeah, so go to IMAX. Melbourne, the food here is so, so good. It is ridiculous.
So
Like
good.
any cuisine you want, you could just line them up and then just free public
Absolutely.
transport the whole way, just eating and barely walking.
That's so good. Are
Yeah, so that would
you
be
a
the dream.
coffee or are you a
Coffee,
coffee or
yes.
a tea person?
Coffee,
Coffee?
100%.
All right. Are you a morning person or night person?
I'll never be an early morning person. The only time will be if the fire alarm goes off or if I have a flight to catch. When people are like 5 a.m. club, I'm like, the only reason you wake up at 5 a.m. is to lord it over everybody else. That's a scam
You're
I'm not
such a
getting on board
wonderful
with. I'm
person.
sorry. I've tried. I've never tried 5 a.m. I've tried 7 a.m. gym, and even that's pushing it. It's pushing it.
So, what's one thing that instantly lifts your mood?
I think seeing a greyhound. I
Okay,
fostered one
nice.
last year, so I guess when I had MS and I was like, well, I'm not going anywhere anyway. May as well foster a dog. And then
Foster a greyhound.
yeah. I was like, why not? And they're such an unusual creature because they are made for speed, performance. And
Right.
then when they're no longer racing, they just have to learn how to be a normal dog. And the world is utterly confusing to them. And it's adorable because they're doing their best.
Yeah, absolutely. What's your dog's name?
Oh, no. So she got adopted, but it was Rosie. I took care of her for
Oh,
a month.
Rosie.
I taught her
She.
how to use stairs. I took her to the beach, gave her all these doggy experiences.
What's one thing? What's one thing people would never expect about you? To find out about you.
Oh yeah, I just already covered the world record stuff. So I don't think there's anything. I'm left-handed. That comes in handy.
Beautiful. That's touche. I'm
Yeah.
left-handed as well. You know what they
Oh
say about
yes.
left-handed people, sis?
Yeah.
You know what they say? They say the most creative minds are left-handed, and the most disciplined
Amazing.
people.
Yeah, when I see a left-hander in the wild, I'm like, yes, one of us.
Yes.
100%. Okay,
All
you
right,
get it. You get
beautiful.
it. Yeah.
I do get it. I've been left-handed since a very young age. But
Mhm.
when everything is said and done, when people hear your name years from now, what do you want them to remember about you? Not just what you've achieved, but who you were
Mhm.
through it.
Well, I hope that I'm that. When you get those intrusive thoughts to do something that's weird and crazy, I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
do it. Like, do it. Like, you want to. Because there's always like 1,000 logical reasons not to. And I just want to be that one that just like tips the scale, where it's like, I
Wow.
wasn't going to do it. And then this weird hula hoop lady said, do it anyway. You never know how it's going to go. Like, that's what I want to live on.
So, what would you say right now to someone watching this who is struggling physically, mentally, or spiritually?
I think sometimes we're not actually designed to solve our own problems. Like, we think we can rationalize our way out of it, we can think our way out of it. But sometimes it's us just stepping away from it, being around other people, and letting them show us. Because if you thinking about it over and over and over again isn't helping, if you ruminating and doing all those things isn't helping, doing that for another week, another year, like, is that going to help? And so I think sometimes the asking for help, don't get me wrong, sometimes it's excruciating. And sometimes you might get a no, like, people are allowed to say no. But then when you learn how to do that and you take the sting out of it, life can be much, much easier to you. And know that when you ask for help, you're actually doing the other person a favor because you're building trust. And they know that when they're stuck and where they're struggling, they know they can call on you. So it's not selfish. It's not you being weak. It's you strengthening a relationship and allowing yourself to be loved.
It's so
Like I tell that
beautiful.
to myself. I forget that sometimes.
I think we all do. I think we need a constant reminder of that. Tell people, Jenny, where they can find you, where they can follow your journey, what you've got coming up next.
Yes, so you could find me on Instagram, the Jenny Doan, on my website, jennydoan.com.au. And then shit happens, I'm around there. You'll see that. find us on Instagram as well. Anything you want to know about toilet paper in Australia, I got you. And yeah, I'm in Melbourne, so open for anyone who needs a public speaker, a hula hoop trainer. I'm all for it.
That's beautiful. Jenny, I just want to say this. This wasn't just inspiring, this was real. And people don't need to be perfect. They need to be real. So I appreciate you for bringing that energy today. This wasn't another episode, of the Zeus podcast. This was like more of a spiritual awakening in a sense. Jenny, I just, from the bottom of my heart, I wish you the best of luck. Thank you so much for your time, your energy, your resilience, your inspiration today. My heart feels warm after talking to you, to be honest. And I just want to
Same.
say thank you from the bottom of my heart. This was wonderful.
Thank you.
I hope that you enjoyed it as well.
Fantastic.
This was episode 17, Strength in the Storm. If this episode spoke to you, share it please with somebody who needs it, and stay locked in because we've got more real conversations coming. Please look after each other, take care, learn to coexist with one another, because this world's already crazy as it is. We need more unity than anything else. Jenny, thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to speaking to you soon. Good
Thank you for
night,
having
sis.
me.
God bless you.